Welcome to the London Commercial Offices podcast with me, your host, Steve Berridge, Managing Director at Fidgens Cost Management. This is a podcast where we share the stories, career paths, lessons and insights from some of the industry's most influential people. Anything contained within our podcast should not be considered professional advice, and if you haven't done so already, please hit the subscribe or follow buttons to ensure you don't miss any of the amazing guests we've got coming up. It also really helps us grow the show. Thanks. Today I'm joined by Pendrick Brown, Principal at HLW, a full-service interiors and architecture practice covering a diverse range of sectors, employing more than 200 people across 8 offices in London and the US. I've known Pendrick for a number of years and have benefited greatly from his kind, selfless introductions to others in the industry, so it gives me great pleasure to welcome Pendrick to the show.
Hi Steve, thanks for having me. Wonderful to be here.
You're very welcome. As you'll know from my other episodes, I like to go right back to the start to give our audience some context about you as a person, where you came from, and how you've ended up where you are. And we do this in different ways, but I think today let's start by asking, were you an academic, well-behaved child at school?
I'm sure as anyone who knows me can guess, that's absolutely how I portray myself back in the day. But
I thought
if you asked any of my teachers, they would probably give you quite the opposite. No, I was sport mad. Did sport all the time. When I wasn't doing sport, I was thinking about playing sport. And when I was in lessons, it was just like waiting for the clock to tick down until I'd go and play sport again. So no, I think my disciplinary record at school was possibly not the finest. Tell my daughters that.
Was that detentions or was that just, naughty but nice?
No, definitely detentions. When I got my A-level results, the headmaster said that I had the worst disciplinary record of anyone he'd ever taught in his illustrious, probably 40-year career. So I'm not sure if that's...
So you were award-winning from a young age?
Yeah, I didn't get a certificate or anything. It was quite disappointing. But yeah, and then my brother proudly told me the other day that he thinks he took the record off me when he left school. So, but because I was good at sport, they always put the detentions off. So I didn't actually spend the time for doing the crimes. I mean, all I did was cheeky and mess about and, throw snowballs through windows at teachers and that sort of stuff. So it was nothing untoward. But
the usual mischievousness.
Pretty much, yeah.
What sports were you into? Was it everything, or was there a particular?
It started off everything, absolutely. I think I was slightly hyperactive as a kid, so my mum would take me everywhere to do everything: athletics, trampolining, rugby, cricket, football, the works. And then when I got older, focused purely on cricket and rugby. But yeah, enjoyed playing those to the highest level I could. Got quite far. Was still dreaming of being professional sports when I went to university, and then turned up to the first and second nets and realised that I was actually quite a long way off the standard required. I'd like to say concentrated on my studies, but found out that Durham University is actually a really good drinking place as well. So muddled through, got a degree, and then went to go and work in a brewery. So they paid you in money and beer. It was ideal.
Money and beer, perfect. What were you interested in sort of educational-wise back at school and A-levels? Were you sort of more numerate or were you English biased?
I'd say word-based, but somehow ended up doing economics for A-levels, but I did English, economics and ancient history. So learning about the Romans, the Greeks, literature, and then somehow macro and microeconomics too. So quite an eclectic mix, clearly with a plan of exactly where my career was going to take me.
Well, I've seen your career path, so at that point in time, you can't have had any idea. Did okay at A-levels, left the school with an excellent record of behaviour, and ended up at Durham University.
Fantastic, absolutely loved it. Loads of good mates. Again, trying to play cricket and rugby. Unfortunately, in my year off, I managed to break my knee 2 weeks before my Harlequin trials. And that knee injury wiped me out for a year pretty much after operations and everything else. So turned up at uni where I probably only really got in because of my sporting prowess, to say that I couldn't actually play any sport for the first 2 terms, I think it was. I think they were more disappointed that I was injured than I was, but it was a tough road back. And then when I did eventually come back to full fitness, it was too late really. I'd missed a huge chunk of that year that might have, who knows, might have made it somewhere. But I mean, I still played for years and years and years afterwards, just because I loved the game so much. And then left uni with a nice degree, wandered on.
What did you study at Durham?
So I started off doing psychology, but it was too many hours a week, considering I was also trying to do all the sport and the training and everything else. So I switched to sociology, which, to be frank, is of no use to man nor beast as far as I can work out. But it was 4 hours a week of actual lecture time, which suited me greatly.
4 hours across the whole week?
Yeah, it's not. I worked out afterwards, it's not actually enough to qualify as a full-time degree, which is why they had to put in seminars and reading hours and all that sort of stuff in the curriculum to make sure they actually, I guess, put enough hours in there for it to qualify as a degree. But, Durham's a great university. They still taught very well. They take it very seriously. When I did look up what I could follow as having done a sociology degree, it was policeman, social worker, that sort of side of it, and wasn't really where I wanted to go. So I had to look for something else to do. I mean, ideally, I really wanted to become a sports journalist, which actually my nephew is successfully pursuing at the moment. So I will watch his career with joy. I was actually at university with a certain Simon Lazenby. I was at school and uni with him, who then went on to fame at Sky Sports. He was cricket producer and is now the leading face of Formula One there. So he's managed to do
first name drop of the episode.
Well, I doubt many people, and no offence to Cy here, but I doubt many people know who he is.
What did you get from Durham?
I barely scraped a third.
Scraped your third, and then so came out of Durham with a degree in sociology. At that point in time, whilst you were, because I think it was different for me. I was at uni doing, a vocational degree, quantity surveying. I knew what I was going to do, and a part of that structured training was about finding work. And actually, I'd secured a job to walk out of uni into at Davis Langdon.
That's impressive.
Davis Langdon back then, now ACOM.
No small place to get into either.
I was fortunate in the sense of because they actually have quite a stringent sort of application process for their graduate scheme, but I'd managed to secure some workplace sort of summer holiday work the year before for one of their partners, Neil, who's now in Dubai, and got on really well with him. So actually, at the end of that summer, had managed to secure myself a place and bypass the quite rigorous application process. Again, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And to be fair, I worked bloody hard during that summer and proved my worth. So I was very lucky. But in contrast, I had a plan. I was at uni. I knew where I was going. I knew what I was going into. Talk to me about your kind of final year then at uni. Did you have a plan? Did you know by that point, had you moulded a kind of a career path that you thought you wanted to follow?
Yes, I always dreamed of becoming a travelling salesman for a brewery.
I thought so. Lots of young men do.
No, not at all. I was applying for everything. So I think I wrote off applications to advertising agencies because I thought they might be fun. I think I got a formal letter back saying you're definitely not coming anywhere near our advertising company, but this is one of the more amusing applications we've had. So thanks for that.
Amusing in the sense of just because the lack of experience, or actually you had done something amusing as part of your application?
Yeah, I'd very cleverly drawn myself as a super ad man, so with cape and flying and everything. So they obviously found it.
So you were creative from a young age.
Unfortunately, not the best artist, perhaps. But yeah, I mean, I didn't know what to do, so I was flailing around trying to apply for everything. As my wife now happily tells me, I should probably have become a lawyer because I do like arguing so much. At the time, no clue.
If you did want to do more than 4 hours a week at uni, I think a law degree might not have been the right option for you.
It's a very fair point.
So out of uni, applications go out to the market as wide as you can. Rejected from advertising agencies, it sounds like.
Everything else, pretty much, yeah. So fortunately, through every term holiday I'd worked, so I ended up working at the Oval, which is the home of Surrey cricket, because I was playing Surrey YC cricket at the time, so I knew quite a lot of the people there. Like you, I'd done a work experience week there and got on really well with the team, the non-playing side of it. So they kept inviting me back, and I'd do all sorts of jobs all around the Oval. Got to know everyone there really well. And then when I was leaving university, happened to have a conversation, and they were talking about sponsorships, and Vault Brewing, which it was at the time, was run by the Nicholson brothers. And I put an application in there, had an interview in Sunderland, having never been to Sunderland before.
And where were you based?
In Durham. So we were in...
Okay.
This was while I was, leaving final year at university. So went and interviewed Vault Breweries, and they offered me a job in their marketing team, moved with a mate of mine who joined Mars to a place called Newton Aycliffe, which was kind of between Middlesbrough and Sunderland, and then drove my Nissan Sunny company car from Newton Aycliffe into Sunderland every day. And it was it was an eye-opening place, Sunderland. It's still to this date the only place I've been to where we went to a nightclub at about 8 p.m, early and empty. And then when I left at 2 a.m, mine was still the only coat in the cloakroom. And this was Christmas and snowing. What a typical Southerner.
Very nice. So talk to me about the role then. So you were applying to everyone, all and everyone. When you applied, what was the position at the brewery?
It was a marketing assistant.
Marketing assistant. And what did that entail then?
I didn't really know, to be honest. It was turning up just to help the marketing team. And they, I think, liked my character. We got on very well with the boss called Barry. He was a top bloke. In my first week, I remember they said, you've got to watch the European game. We've sponsored it. You should look out for it. Let us know what you think. And they'd spent a fortune on advertising. I watched the whole game, came in the next day and went, I didn't see you. Where were you? And they're like, well, did you not see Scorpion written all the way around the outside on the hoardings? And I was like, I did. No one outside of Sunderland knows what Scorpion is. So I thought maybe you were advising people to check their shoes if they've been in the desert or something. It doesn't say Scorpion Lager. It doesn't say Vaux Breweries. It literally just said Scorpion. And Barry, who'd suddenly gone quite a few shades of white, said, okay, you can go and tell Mr. Nicholson that. So I had to go and up and see outside his ferocious secretary and sit down and go, I've got to go and see Mr. Nicholson. And she's like, why? And I explained it. She's like, let me make you a cup of tea. So she was lovely. She looked after me, and I had to go and say, you've just wasted tens of thousands, if not £100,000 advertising something that only people who already know what it is will know what you're talking about, and no one else is going to work out what it was. So that was quite a week. I wasn't sure I was going to have a job after day 3, I think it was.
You're a junior marketing assistant, but you were the one that kind of spotted it and sent it upstream.
Yeah, well, got sent upstream.
So making waves from very early on.
Yeah, well, they figured that he probably wasn't going to sacrifice me that early. So I was the safest bet to go or I was a sacrificial lamb that they were quite happy to get rid of, having just started. But no, it all went well. A lot of ribbing about being southern in a northern brewery. Moved on from just sort of helping around doing whatever the marketing bits was to then becoming more of a travelling salesman. So was driving all sorts of Nissans, because obviously Nissan and Sunderland are closely linked all around the country, including from Sunderland to Exeter and back in a day, to try and push why all the beer sellers who supply all the independent pubs should use the Vaux products. They did loads of great ales such as Waggle Dance, etc., and they were trying to move out of their heartland of Sheffield and Sunderland, and that was my job. However long I was there, a year and whatever.
Nearly a couple of years, I think. We're in the drinks business at a very early age. Talk to me, very briefly about that transition then from that career path to how you started navigating yourself over to kind of the real estate kind of construction sector. Was it a real mental, I want to do something different, or was there a more of a softer, gradual process that sort of...
A gradual process. I mean, I don't know if you know that, but my dad was always in real estate. He was a very successful project manager, ran his own company and was doing great guns. And I was vehemently trying to resist the lure of that and forge my own path. And then, so
I hear that quite a lot from people that we've spoken to, that where there has been a family of, a family business and I was the same when I was younger. I was vehemently against going to work, as part of the family cost consultancy. It's only when you get to a certain age you think, well, no, actually, I'm missing a trick here.
Yeah, exactly. Well, pretty much exactly that. So I then set up, I was massively missing cricket and being that close, I felt, to going pro and knowing loads of the players. I grew up playing cricket with Ashley Giles, who played for England and went on to become the director of cricket at ECB. So I set up a cricket equipment company. So we had a guy in South Africa who made bats with English Willow. We were getting all of the soft goods made in Pakistan and India and flown over and ran that for a couple of years. Then the guy who made the bats decided that he wanted to put his own mark on it, because he'd only ever made bats for the top pros, had then put whoever their sponsor's sticker was on it. So he didn't have his own brand, so to speak. So we gave him the option to have a brand, which worked really well for a couple of years. We had great players like Clark going up through the ranks at Surrey. He went on to play England as well. He was using our equipment for a while. And then he decided he needed to change his name, and Mick Bellingham was his name, and Bellingham and Smith was the company that he formed, and he wanted his labels to say BS. And I wasn't really keen on trying to sell that as a brand in the UK. So that's when the lure of my dad's company said, well, look, you've been doing marketing, you're doing this really well, come and join me as a marketing person. So went and joined SBP as doing marketing to begin with, moved seamlessly, as everyone does, into more of a, doing snagging.
Talk to me about SBP. So it was your dad's business, and what was it as a business for anyone that doesn't know?
Pure project management, nothing else. Didn't tread on any of your toes, so all the QSs were safe. Just project management. Done really well. Done properly. I would say a lot of the alumni of SBP have gone on to amazing things, like James Angus, who's now very, very high up at G&T. There's Alan Povey at G&T. There's loads of great people who've come through the ranks there. And I was there for any number of years, like 8-10 years, came up through the ranks, became partner, with the option of becoming, I guess, managing partner, where I was at an age when I was like, I just don't know enough about the business. I know the networking, the BD side, project management side. I don't know enough about MEP or any of the other elements. So in my wisdom, decided I'd try and forge a path into another realm. So then joined NG Bailey to learn how buildings lived and breathed, how the sparks and the pipes work.
And was that still on kind of the business development side for them?
Yeah, that was running all of their business development across all of London. and then got headhunted by HOK to run a big team for them. So it was a nice team of people. And I was, at the time, it's like, I don't know enough about architecture either, but did.
I'm sorry, by this point in time, you're in London now.
Yeah. Left Sunderland far behind. Don't know how many years that was before, but quite a few. And then got headhunted by HOK, as I said, moved there. Was a good fun team under the guidance of Rob Firth, who I would say was probably one of the first mentors, aside from my dad, who was a really good guy, really switched on, really clever. He'd run architecture practice before, was brought into HOK. I think during the global financial crisis, HOK had kind of ignored London and looked externally because they had a lot of good clients across EMEA. And when London, I guess, circled the wagons and said, right, we're going to get through this, HOK were kind of on the outside looking in. So they brought me in and a few other BD people underneath me to try and unlock the UK market again. And I think we were getting there, but it takes a long time. And I think patience was running thin, but from the States, and there was a big cull of all of HOK. So that was my first experience of getting made redundant, which was not a fun time. It's a big knock to your confidence. It's a big knock to everything. You're suddenly there reassessing your worth, your value, your ability. And I was sitting there thinking, well, look, whatever I do is transferable. I know I've got project management skills. I know I can do that bit. And I know I've got the marketing and the sales and the BD skills. How do I kind of combine those? And then looking around the market in the middle of the aftermath of the financial crisis, I thought, who are the only people who do make money? It's the lawyers, pretty much. So I applied to Bowen Leighton Paisner, as was now Brian Cave, Leighton Paisner, or Bowen Leighton Paisner. But yeah, to help run their real estate team. So working with the lawyers on how they pitch, coaching them through, I guess, the heads up way of pitching so that there's a chairman and it's not just everyone turns up, does their spiel, moves on to the next person. You've got to have someone who's watching the client and seeing how they're reacting and focusing when their eyes light up and moving on quickly when their eyes glaze over, and working with a lot of really good people. I think Bowen Leighton Paisner at the time was probably the preeminent real estate law firm in London, if not the UK.
And was that with a real estate bias, if that makes sense? So you were helping.
Yeah.
It was purely so you were still within the kind of business development space. You were still helping them pitch and secure work.
Absolutely. Yeah, helping set up their key account management system, working with them closely on that side of things. There was a bit of project management in terms of how they're running the projects and teams within them. And yeah, it was a thoroughly enjoyable thing. The problem for me was that it was a fixed term contract, and then they just kept extending it by a little bit and saying, oh yeah, we're going to make a big decision any moment. But that had rolled on for a bit too long. And in the interim, I'd been offered a job by DWF, which was a great job with some great people. They were spread out across London. They'd just taken over Fishburns, which was an insurance company. They wanted someone to help run the London office from that sort of bit of project management in terms of the actual move to the walkie-talkie, which they did, but also, helping set up how they approach everything. And
I should say DWF, another law firm.
Another law firm. Okay. Initially from Manchester, and they wanted a big flagship London office, so help with that move into the walkie-talkie, relocation of teams, getting teams to talk to each other, work together, and again, pushing the BD side of it very much. Worked with Toby Askin there, who's a top lawyer, really good guy, thoroughly enjoyed working with him. And then was there for a number of years when, again, the same headhunter, who's probably made quite a bit of money out of me, came knocking and said, would you like to join Woods Baggett?
So just before we start talking about Woods Baggett, which is, kind of your first foray into the architecture and design world properly after HOK.
Yeah.
You mentioned when you were at HOK, although it was a short tenure and it obviously didn't end favourably for you, that you had essentially one of two mentors that you've ever had in your life, the first being your father. So you just very briefly kind of talk to me about that mentor relationship and what you kind of got from that, because it strikes me as that was your first kind of true introduction to not just business development, but architecture and design as a business, which is kind of where you've ended up. So it's quite interesting to go back to that almost as a starting point, planting that seed. So if we could talk about that in terms of that mentor and how that relationship evolved.
Yeah, I think most of it is thanks to Rob. I mean, he now runs his own coaching business, which shows the sort of mentality that he has to it. But he was commercially savvy because he'd run businesses before successfully. He obviously knew architecture and design inside and out, but he got the BD elements and he got the how to run effective and efficient teams. And it wasn't so much a formal mentoring situation. It was just, spending as much time with him, tapping into his knowledge and his approach and his brain, asking as many questions as I could without becoming a pain, and just learning on the go. And I, weren't there for very long, but I learned in the almost a year I was there than I did at other places in much longer tenures. He was just a natural mentor, natural coach. I think he could naturally spot where strength needed to be built on and where there were gaps in knowledge and just helping. And I think despite my academic prowess, I'm not a stupid person, so I pick it up quite quickly, and I can pick up the lingo quite quickly and work out how to do things and spot ways to do things better or more effectively. And he was encouraging for that, even though he's like, obviously you're not a designer, you're not an architect, but you can find ways of doing things, and you can look at the practical side of it and the buildable side of it. And so there was a lot more integration with some great people like Vance Thompson, who was there as one of their designers, who welcomed input from, they weren't just, like some professions can be, you're not trained in this, you don't know what you're talking about, don't try. Whereas there were some people there who were like, actually, you've got an interesting perspective on this, talk to us through it. And through all of that, you got to know the clients and the client's view, and then you can relay that onto the project team, saying, yeah, but if you were the client, what would you want this project to look like? And then that just can sometimes stop not going down into a folly, but having a one-eyed designer approach to that, but also reverting back to brief and making sure you're actually ticking the boxes there. So yeah, it was a short tenure, but really informative and hugely educational.
Excellent. Okay, so we're kind of mid 2015. I think mid 2015. You're at DWF, and your favourite headhunter appears in your inbox again.
Yeah,
Woods Baggett.
Yeah. So then I wasn't looking. I wasn't even thinking of leaving DWF. I was enjoying it there. I was working with a guy called Clifton Harrison, who hugely impressive character. I think he's now running EY Law or something like that. But there was, he was already top of the tree. I couldn't see him going anywhere because he was doing brilliantly, and there was nowhere else for me to go beyond where I was already. So when they came knocking and they wanted me to come and be part of the Woods Baggett journey in London, big company, 100 odd people, sit on the EMEA board with amazing people like Jonathan French, Jonathan Clark, Pete O'Donnell, Jonathan Lear. Didn't have to be called Jonathan to work there, but I think it helped. And having then gone and interviewed and met them, full of charisma. I mean, the 3 years we were there before it started changing a little bit were some of the most fun years. And I actually met JC, Jonathan Clark, again recently, and he and I are both Crystal Palace fans for our sins, and we were beating Man U, I think, 4-0. So it was having some text exchanges, and he was like, that was one of his favourite periods of work as well. So it just a great chemistry between the people there, and they all cared about their teams. So it was a nice feeling, even though it was a big, quite a big unit. There was a really nice feeling about looking after everyone and making sure we, were pulling together and doing all the right things for the right reasons.
And what was your title? What was your role within that organisation whilst you were there?
Again, I was brought in to run all of the BD and I think client relationship side and a lot of management of accounts. So I'd be the one in the background, all meeting the clients and talking them through and setting up how the projects were run with some of the teams within it, and making sure everyone's doing all the right thing. And I think a lot of my success has come through BD, but it isn't, it's not a single person sport, it's a team sport. So it's getting everyone to go out and do their little bit and work out how easy it is to actually go and do BD, rather than thinking it's this big horrible networking thing. You've got to go into a room of 300 people and not know anyone, and then hand out a business card to every single one of them and come back with a conversation.
Which still happens today.
I don't get it.
I think it actually paints a business in a bad light, but I think BD done well, it isn't BD. It's actually just making relationships that may or may not pay off in the short term, but may pay off in the long term. It's
exactly that. I mean, skipping ahead, when I joined HFW, one of the first things I did was just sit with all the senior team and just say, who's your favourite PM? Because obviously interior design business and architecture business, you work closely with PMs. They control the RFPs and who gets on the list for the most part. And then it was, name your favourite PM. When was the last time you spoke to them? When was the last time you took him, her out for lunch? That's all I want you to do. Go and have lunch with your favourite PM, and we'll pay for it within reason.
And quite possibly don't even talk about work.
Yeah, absolutely not. Just remind yourselves why you got on in the first place. I mean, you know how good a successful project is when you walk away and everyone's like, we've got to find another project to do this together with. That was great fun. Make it work.
Well, we were talking about this just before we hit record, about, how there, that on certain projects there is a lack of fun, and whether that's fee compression and, or I don't know, just a post-COVID kind of knock-on effect. But, I've definitely noticed it that a lot more of my projects that we're involved with, there is that lack of fun that was around 5, 6, 7 years ago.
That fun doesn't have to be we've all got to go out and get pie-eyed together. It can be literally just enjoying each other's company and talking about the project. And so, when I moved to JAC and became a commercial director there and project director on project, the whole point was no one goes into a project wanting it to fail. No one goes into a project going, how can I mess this one up and make everyone cross with me? But the good project team is the one, when it comes to Friday and it's been a really tough week, and every project has that bad week at least, that go, okay, how are we going to get through this? Let's not bother the client. Let's all get round a table, over a meal or however it is, and work out how we're going to get through this. And the bad project team is one that gets to the end of the day and goes, I'm done with you guys. I'm not going to talk to you till next week. Don't care. Sort it out yourselves. It's the ones that pull together and go, okay, how are we going to get, why are you late with your drawings? Oh, because I'm still waiting for information from X, Y, and Z. Okay, well, where's that information? It's like, well, someone's been off sick, but I didn't have to tell you. And it's that, quite often it's just that lack of communication. And as a PM, I would much rather someone came and said to me, look, we're going to really struggle with that deadline, because as much as we take our work incredibly seriously and everyone enjoys what they do, there's not lives at stake.
I say this all the time, whilst what we do is important, and certainly is very important for some of our clients, we're not heart surgeons.
Exactly.
And I do think that quite often there is that element of perspective that does get lost.
Yeah, completely. And look, working with HW is an absolute treat. It is full of really passionate people. We are determinedly not getting bigger than 50 people here, because we can keep that feeling of everyone knows everyone. There's no silos. Lots of people work on all the different projects. You don't just become part of one project team.
Well, let's come on to that properly. So in terms of, we're at Woogs Baggett, in terms of your, I say short stint, but no, you were there for a while at JAC. Did you know, was it Zoe that you knew before?
No.
So it was, again, it wasn't your favourite headhunter, was it?
It was, yeah. He came back again and said, this is a great opportunity. JAC are looking for their succession. Zoe's looking for someone to help take the business over with her. John Cox had obviously run it for 40 years, had done a fantastic job, had built, an amazing company. It was changing. It was the right time to come and join them. They were over in Hammersmith. They were then moving over to South Bank. They'd got a really good team of people in there. It was all, very exciting and was going to be great fun. And again, came in as commercial director, working really closely with their sales team and the project managers. Became project director. I was brought in to really help focus on that traditional world, because I think historically JC had done quite a lot of D&B, but we'd also done some amazing projects in the traditional sort of sense, including what then became 91, what was Investec Asset Management, moving into an amazing building, incidentally designed by HW. But that was a fantastic project, and I think they'd thought, well, okay, we've got a bit of portfolio now. We can start to use that track record to win more traditional work. And obviously, my background was all about traditional project management, traditional architecture, and interior design. So it seemed like a good fit with my network. My being able to be a project director on top of really talented project managers like Shane, who you're working with, I think, again, on projects at the moment. And it worked really well. Thoroughly enjoyed working with, the team. Shane and I still get on really well. Love catching up with him whenever we can. It was a good place. We won some really nice projects, Peel Hunt being one that went really well. The client was, again, an absolute pleasure once the communication piece was over. And I think agents have many, many skills and many, many talents, but guessing the budget projects is perhaps not always one of them.
And it's a problem that we come up against a lot. And I won't mention any names or clients or agents. Budgets are often set, before we're appointed. And I always say, for God's sake, just reach out. And even if it's some pro bono, we'll have a conversation and help put some meat on the bone for you, so that it isn't a finger in the air, because it creates no end of problems.
Yeah.
When the team get up and running, and you as a designer is looking at me saying, well, how much have we got to spend? And I had to say, not very much.
Yeah, I don't blame the agents for it. Theirs is a true, it's a transactional piece. They want to move things through. They don't want to upset what could be an amazing deal for them. If they turned around and said, yeah, okay, your rent's high and your fit out costs are going to be even higher, then they'd be like, okay, well, we can't do that. We'll move somewhere else. So it's not always in their best interests. And the client goes into an amazing building and then goes, actually, we probably do want to spend a bit more. It normally balances out. But yeah, I mean, we've had some shocks. We've been told £100 a square foot will get you anything. And then you turn up and they want, so we want an auditorium, client fine dining.
It's also been, 100 quid a square foot Cat B for the last 10 years. Yeah. I've heard that from clients. How much have you got? We put 100 quid a foot in. That figure hasn't changed.
And that will barely get you an open plan, nothing else in it these days. It needs to move on. But those, sometimes those are the most fun projects. And fortunately, Peel Hunt did amazingly well during lockdown. And they just said, you know what, let's spend the money where we can because we want to bring everyone back to the office post-COVID. This is, we're earning loads of money while we're here, but we really miss getting everyone together and getting the teams back. So yeah, Stephen Fine, who's the CEO there, really forward-looking client, one of those clients you really enjoy working with. And, he used us as a trusted advisor and then used HLW as a trusted advisor. And ironically, he was headhunted by HLW during Peel Hunt, not by my favourite headhunter, by a new one. And the chance to join HLW was just too good to turn down. I mean,
had the Peel Hunt project concluded at that point, or was there a transition, an overlap?
There was when the client...
You went from project management to principal of the
principal in charge, yeah. And the client, I think, jokingly said, "We just can't get rid of you, can we?" But I think they were joking. And, I think they were happy to still see me there. It's a really successful project. So I'm still in contact with JAC, as you know, still meet them, still see Zoe a lot. Zoe is an incredible lady. She is, an absolute force of nature, really bright, so switched on, so commercially savvy, knows project management inside and out. And I suspect we probably could have made a success of us taking over the company together. But she is so formidable that it's very much this is the Zoe way. And then trying to work out where I would fit around that wasn't always so obvious to me. So the chance to join HW and partner up with Bronte, and knowing that HW were looking for a very different role in the market in terms of a more project management based BD networking side, to come in and be a principal and not be a designer, was fascinating. Initially was pushing back, going, I'm not qualified as an architect or a designer. If
you look at your diverse career path, you have touched on lots of the different facets that I think it takes to become, to successfully lead a design firm. You started in advertising, let's say. You've gone through HOK, you've earned your stripes as a project manager, commercial director at JAC. I think, they're all, whilst indirectly, sort of earning your stripes in the background, ready for the main event, which I think is probably your longest stint, I think, isn't it? With the exception of SBP. Talk to me about day one then.
Middle of lockdown one. So day one was remote. Day two was remote. The interview process was, obviously, as everyone was learning on the fly and trying to work out how we do this, the interview process was, at one point, I think it was a 2-hour drop-in session. So any of the other partners and principals at HLW could just turn up and interview me at any point. So that was a long afternoon.
Like by sitting in the hot seat.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. And then, they offered me the role, and obviously moving in lockdown, my wife was questioning my sanity quite closely, because JAC was going well. I think with just one Avenir Global, which is one of mine that I'd brought in, and then we pitched and won it. So that was, JAC was pretty secure and settled and ticking along. I think, knowing Bronte and her reputation in the industry, and yet to find anyone with a bad word against her, and I've tried.
I can vouch for that. She, I met her at one of our round tables earlier in the year.
Yeah, so I mean, I've tried to find someone who'll say something nasty about her, but I haven't found one yet. She's lovely. She's great at what she does. She's been running HLW London for a decade plus, but over at a young age, and really made it her own. And now I think she's destined for global success. She's always going to stay in London. Kids are here in the school here, and I think that HLW globally will benefit from her expertise, moving up into a senior leader role there, as much as she's still principal in charge of projects in London and helping run the London office. But I think joining her was a pretty easy decision. And I knew lots of their seniors, like working with Andrea Fung, who was on Peel Hunt with me, knew Clive Pereira well. I knew a lot of their senior team. So it was, HW has a great reputation for being hardworking, really creative designers, really good sense of fun, as anyone who's been to a Halloween party can tell you, but also being able to deliver. So not designing a cloud on stilts that no one can actually build, but really getting under the skin of the client, getting that brief stage right, and not coming in with any preconceived ideas of, you're another law firm, or you're another trading firm, or you're another one of those. We already know what your design's going to look like 90%, and then we're just going to tweak bits of it. It is, not reinventing the wheel, and we take best practice to every project, but we really want to understand the client, get to know the client. It's the only place I'd say I've been to where their statement to the market of our work tells your story is fundamental to how they approach every project. It's not marketing speak. It is absolutely what every project lives and dies by, is getting the brief right to really understand the client, and then turning that into the design that matches their expectations and exceeds them in most cases. So it's been it's like herding creative cats at times.
I was going to ask, I mean, if not that many people can relate to being a principal, a large successful design practice. What does your role entail? Almost from a daily perspective, but on a slightly more macro level. What are you responsible for? What are you looking to achieve? How do you measure your success? Been there for over 4 years, I think now. How do you measure your success, your growth?
I think it is getting really good people on board, helping them grow in their careers, helping them understand on a micro and a macro level what's expected of them and how far they can go in the industry and what the opportunities are. As I said at the beginning, helping them work out that BD isn't this onerous chore, and the better they get at networking and BD and relationships, the easier it is for them to win more projects, and then that elevates their place in any firm. And so my role is kind of threefold. It is principal in charge of projects, so helping work on projects, working with the clients, bringing that more practical buildability perspective from a sort of more of a PM and a client point of view, having done key account management and really got under the skin of clients and how they think, and helping all the project teams fine tune how they approach things, how they deliver things, so that they can, I guess, cut through any designer-esque speak and get through to the client in the layman's terms of what the client will understand, and explain it on an easy basis. So that's project level. Then there is BD, the networking, the marketing and the sales side. So that's probably another third of making sure London is still at the forefront. And within that comes PR, thought leadership, doing things like this to make sure that everyone knows who HLW are and why we think we're as successful as we are, all the big companies and small companies alike. And the final part is running the London studio. So everything that entails, which has been a little bit eye-opening in terms of the insurance, the legal contracts, all the nitty-gritty bits. Both
bits behind the scenes that enable guys to do what they do best.
Yeah, absolutely. And me doing that on a local level allows Bronte to do it more on a global level. So I'm taking pressure off her locally so she can, be the best Bronte that she can, both on her project, but also working with HLW on a global scale to help them all grow. So at the moment, she's helping look after our specialty studios or our partners, which is the strategy side, the lighting side, the wayfinding and branding side, who are all almost independent businesses under the umbrella of HLW. So she can take her expertise of how she grew HLW London into such a successful business and help them plot their paths to success, whereas I can come in and sort of help run the London side. And our growth plans are, we're not trying to take over the world. We don't want to be a big corporate firm with 300 plus people that is a safe pair of hands. We love the fact that we're a design-based studio. We're design first and foremost.
How many of you in the London studio?
40 odd of us. Success would be getting to around 50 and stable 50, doing some bigger projects. So we're doing a 350,000 square foot project in Dublin at the moment. We did a nigh on, I think by the end of it, nearly 1 million square foot project in Tel Aviv. And we do, probably 100,000 square foot we did for Accenture in London. But the majority of our projects are probably in the 30 to, I'd say, 100,000 square foot projects in London. And we'd like to elevate that to enable us to do more of the 200,000-300,000 square foot projects. So success for me would be getting into new sectors. So the legal sector, I think I've got a decent insight into how they work and the dynamics. And
hopefully you've got a good Rolodex as well.
We've done 3 since I've been here. So I think before that, we'd only done a couple. We've since done Deckert, we've done Lewis Silkin, we've done Winston and Strawn. So really successful projects that have worked really well. And I like to think that because I understand a little bit more about law firms, that's helped us win those where we might not have done otherwise. I'm global head of the legal sector for HLW. So I work with our guys in New York and LA and everywhere to help fine tune what we do. And we have monthly catch-ups so we all know what we're talking about and where the thought leadership pieces are or what each market's doing in the legal world. So yeah, success for me is probably going to grow to 50 odd people, make sure we're winning bigger projects, spread into different sectors. I'm not talking about getting into, building hostels or all that sort of stuff. I'd like to do a bit more of the repositioning and repurposing of buildings. Again, commercial predominantly. I think there's an avalanche of work waiting to happen there.
I think you're right. Over the next 5 years, particularly.
Absolutely. Unlocking that funding isn't necessarily as easy as we thought it was. But I think I heard somewhere that up to 80% of London's office stock is going to need work on it to get compliant to the EPC ratings, which is, as you say, 5 years. So something's going to happen. I think we've all seen the flight to quality.
Something's going to happen in terms of maybe deadlines slipping because they've realised that those sort of metrics are unachievable. And I think you're right. I think there's an EPC angle for that, but I also think there's another kind of bigger movement in terms of location. When you start now looking at stock that isn't prime location, secondary locations, that maybe office isn't going to be right for that. And then that whole repositioning piece is okay. If it isn't going to be office, what is it going to be?
And how does it work? And how do you turn? There's a big push, wasn't there, of turning offices into resi, but they're just not built the same way. So it's not an easy thing to do, and it's not necessarily a cheap thing to do. We're not at the stage where everything is built so modular that you can easily switch it from commercial to retail to resi to whatever. And maybe that is the path to go down. But at the moment, we want to reuse as much as you possibly can first and foremost, and get to recycling as the third option. Reuse then, and then recycle in kind of that order. So what are the little clever things that you can do to turn a building that's maybe grade B into grade A? And obviously an awful lot of that is MEP, which is very expensive. And I think the flight to quality is the big push now is all about neurodiversity and looking after the individual as much as the rest of it. I think, what is it, designed for the mean but cater for the extreme. It's like there's enough people now. I think they think it might even be 1 in 3 have some form of neurodiversity. So making sure that is bedded in our designs. Sustainability is now, always used to be, and I'm sure you find this too, I'm cynical, so maybe not, but it used to be a buzzword until they saw the price, and then it was like, yeah, maybe next year, maybe the next project.
What do you mean there's a premium for BREEAM Excellent?
Yeah. But now it's less of a, oh crikey, I don't think we can afford that. It's like, okay, well, we're going to have to afford it, so now what do we do? And then it's being clever around that to make sure. I mean, at HW, we've got a healthy materials. No, we can't put forward any material that is harmful for the planet or bad for the environment or whatever. Our clients are going to have to go out of their way to make us specify vinyl or something. And obviously the contractors will try and do it as a V exercise at some point, but we're going, it's just not going to happen. And that's becoming embedded. So that's the norm as opposed to this was the standout, which is great. We try and reuse as much as we possibly can. We think about the circular economy. So how can something be reupholstered?
This is coming up more and more now. I think we've had this conversation, with 3 of our first 7, 8 recorded guests on here, starting with Steve Gilchrist.
I think it's good. And what I love about HW is that we're not doing it as a big bang the drum, look at us, aren't we clever? It's like, we're just going to do it on every project anyway. And
do it because it's the right thing to do.
Because it's not the right thing to do.
It's a buzzword that everyone's currently talking about.
Yeah, and we don't want to necessarily bang on about it because it's like, we should be doing it anyway. It shouldn't be something that you run up the flagpole and all dance around. It's like, we should just be doing it anyway and move on to what's next. How are we going to focus on the next bit of innovation? What's the next thing that's coming and how do we make that better? And I think there's huge scope for it. And I think every company is still getting to grips somehow with hybrid working. Like, okay, how is this post-COVID world still affecting us? How are we doing? Are we looking at our metrics the right way still? Should we not be looking at that in a different way? And that's the sort of stuff that I think HW is looking at really well and will focus on and bring to the market, which is going to be different as opposed to sustainability and neurodiversity. Yeah, absolutely. There might be buzzwords, but they're buzzwords because everyone needs to be talking about them and implementing them on projects. And I think that's where everyone does do good for the world. Yeah, we're not heart surgeons, but we spend an awful lot of time in the office. We're trending to spend at least 3 days in the office for most companies, not all. So let's make those 3 days, 4 days in the office a great place. Because I think the one thing that we all missed was that feeling of belonging, being part of something, seeing people in the office, the learning by osmosis. It's so easy to ignore an email, a Teams message, a text message, even a WhatsApp. If you're on a call and you don't call someone if they're red on their availability because they think, okay, they're busy. Whereas if you're in the office, you can just walk up to them and go, have you got a minute? And they'll be like, not now, but 5 minutes. It's hard to ignore someone when they're right there by your shoulder going, please do we have a quick chat? So I think a lot of people don't know what they don't know. They don't know what they're missing because they've never had it. So the more we can encourage people back into the office, and obviously we're biased because we design offices, but I think it's better for the company. It helps the culture, helps productivity. I would argue you might lose a bit of time if you're having those chats. You might be answering a question that could have caused someone else 2, 3, 4 hours worth of redundant work because they thought they knew the answer and then didn't want to ask. So I think it's a great time to be doing what we're doing because there's been such a change and an upheaval that we've got to think about how we did it before in a different way and what are the new drivers.
And I think that's a really nice way to draw an end to our chat. Because we're not going to solve it all today.
Well, no, and I wouldn't do it on a podcast that you can then send out.
You want to do it face to face, wouldn't you?
Exactly.
I've really enjoyed today. Thanks ever so much for coming on. For anybody that wants to reach out to Pendrick, we'll put his LinkedIn stuff in our show notes. Obviously, HLW is very well known, and you can get in touch with them easily. But look, Pendrick, thanks ever so much for coming on. We'll speak again soon.
That was an absolute pleasure. Thanks for inviting me. Real joy.
For anyone that wants to get in touch with Chris or his team at V7, we'll put your details in the show notes and look forward to catching up with you later in the year to see how you're getting on. Cheers, Chris. This podcast is sponsored by Fidgins, a London-based cost consultancy. Please visit fidgins.co.uk to find out more about our market-leading service and some of the amazing clients we get to work with. We're super open to guest recommendations for this podcast, so if there's anyone in the industry you'd like to get on the show, please visit the website or send me a message on LinkedIn and I'll try to make it happen. Thanks, bye for now.